Hello YouTube, Bane666 here. So I came across an amazing article which really has to be experienced to be believed. Now I should point out that I haven't read the whole thing. Basically I just read the title and the first paragraph, and I'm going to do a cold reading and give you my opinion of it as I go through it for the first time. And just judging it by the title and the first paragraph, yeah, dear viewer, I don't think you're going to be very happy with this one. I think it's going to piss off a lot of people. That's my prediction. I could be wrong. Maybe the first paragraph is, the worst thing about it, and then it gets better. I somehow doubt it, though. I think this is going to be a bit of a ride, so maybe strap yourselves in. So this steaming pile of horseshit is called "Women Have a Right to Hate Men." Sorry, y'all, misandry is justifiable. We're off to a great start here, aren't we? So let's get stuck into the first paragraph.
Misandry, or the hatred of men, is completely understandable. In fact, I wouldn't blame women for never wanting to interact with any man because many of the fact that so many of us are trash.
Oh, so men are trash. Yeah. Now, we often hear from feminists that it's a myth that feminists hate men.
I'm going to be debunking some myths about feminists, I guess you could say. So, number one, feminists hate men. No. I don't know where that came from, because any feminist that's hating on men, entirely, oh my gosh, men are nothing but, these nasty sexual pigs that can't control themselves, that's not a feminist.
Some people fear that feminists want an estrogen world order, where fembots controlled by femnazis make men wash endless mountains of dishes. Sorry, but it's just not true.
Okay, moving on, though. Misconception number 2, that all feminists hate men, they hate marriage, and they hate family. This is completely not true.
So I hope that you can see how silly that these things are, that we're not crazy man-hating lesbians that never shave.
Clearly, some feminists hate men. Let's not fuck around here. And this is one of them. This is written by a male feminist who clearly hates men and hates himself and thinks that men are trash. Fucking fantastic. Let's continue.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Actually, it doesn't make sense. To judge half the world's population based purely on their gender, it doesn't make sense to me. But then again, I'm all about judging individuals based on who they are, not on their race or gender or whatever. Not on the progressive stack. I'm sure in the mind of a male feminist it makes perfect sense, and I'm sure that's exactly what we're going to see, unfortunately. So let's continue.
And for the record, I am a queer man who has contributed to the reason why women might just hate us. We all have.
Fantastic. All men are guilty automatically. Yeah. Now this is as far as I got before I decided to do this video. So from here on it's uncharted waters. We're going into these uncharted waters together. This is going to be fun. But let me make a prediction. My prediction is that this guy is a female supremacist. Now, once again, we hear from feminists all the time that feminism isn't about female supremacy.
But we don't believe that women are superior to men. We don't believe that all men are awful.
And let's face it, in some cases, it fucking is. If you believe all the evils in the world are caused by men, you are a fucking female supremacist. If you believe that only bad things happen to women, you are a female supremacist. If you excuse crimes or bad behaviour committed by women that you wouldn't when committed by a man, you are a female supremacist. If you believe that the world would be in perfect harmony with no war or no crime or no famine, and everyone would be living in paradise if the world was run by women, then you are a fucking female supremacist. You are not about equality. You don't give a shit about equality. That's just an excuse for your supremacy. Now, my guess would be that this guy is a female supremacist and a mangina. Now, I should define the word mangina as I use it. Basically, a mangina is a man who hates his own masculinity to the point that he wishes he was a woman. Now, if you're a man who's naturally feminine or something like that, that's not a problem. I think people should be the way they naturally are. The problem is when they're brainwashed or taught that being masculine is wrong and being feminine is somehow superior or right or without fault. Once again, female supremacy, not equality. Two different things. But let's continue.
Why would you blame all men for something some men did?
That's a very good question. I'm sure the answer is going to be extremely interesting.
This whole, not all men, has got to stop. If the shoe don't fit, then quietly go about your daily business and don't wear it, but chances are that it does fit. Let's start at the beginning.
So once again, if this was the standard applied to men speaking badly about women, I'm guessing it would be evidence of misogyny, right? If men went around saying all women are X, Y, Z and then said something negative, and then when people criticised them, they said, well, you know, if you're a woman that this doesn't apply to, just ignore it. I'm pretty sure that man would still be called a fucking misogynist. And there's a good chance that description would be correct. But apparently it's a different set of standards when talking generally about men. Apparently you can just say all men are fucking trash, and that's it. All men are to blame for everything. End of story, apparently. And that's perfectly fine, apparently. Apparently that's not misandry, because according to this guy, that doesn't exist, or it's not important, or something. Next.
Patriarchy and Male Privilege 101. All over the world, even where matriarchal societies reign supreme, men still have a major, and often negative, impact on women's lives.
Okay, so it's only men doing this to women. It's not men doing it to men, not women doing it to women, not women doing it to men. It's just men doing it to women. It's not society, which is made up of men and women, doing it to society, which is men and women. No, it's just men doing it to women. Okay, got it. Like I said, female supremacist. Only sees the negativity of masculinity and only the positive of femininity. Next.
Societies that banish men, but are a part of a so-called third world country still face the consequences of the men who make decisions for imperial countries, such as the United States of America. A woman need not be near a man to suffer for, or because of his failings.
Okay, simple question. If we had a female leader of the United States, if Trump had lost and Hillary had won, do you think the decisions being made would be any different? Yeah, I know some people watching this are probably saying it would be worse. Some are probably saying it would be better. But generally speaking, there would still be self-interest and corruption and putting America's interest before other parts of the world, and military actions and possibly war and all the other stuff that you get from political leaders who are male. Having a vagina does not exclude you from that. If we suddenly got a female president of the United States, the world isn't suddenly going to turn into a paradise overnight. I hate to tell you this. I'm sure some feminists would be a bit shocked to hear it. But there's still going to be crime and murder and poverty and self-interest. And by self-interest I mean on a personal level of the politician in question, as well as self-interest of the country that they're the head of. All this stuff has always happened and will always happen, not because males are leaders, but because of human nature, and because of the nature of politics and those who seek power. Hate to tell you this, but Hillary isn't divine, nor is any other female politician, or male politician for that matter. They're all fucking human. Deal with it.
So whether individual men choose to be nice guys or not matters, But patriarchy is much bigger than just interpersonal relationships. We assume that men are more intelligent, much stronger, more efficient, and generally, better, than women.
Okay, who is the we assuming this? Because clearly it's not you and your fellow feminists. You said earlier that you think men are trash. If you think men are trash, and at the same time you're assuming that men are better than women, what does that make women? Yeah, obviously the we doesn't include you, does it? And your fellow self-hating male feminists. And I would agree that there are both positive and negative stereotypes towards both males and females. In some cases they're based on reality, and in some cases they're not. But either way, we shouldn't let them limit people. But this guy's only looking at half the picture. Why am I not surprised?
The only thing that we commonly credit women with is emotional intelligence and maternal affection, which are attributes men can also be taught.
Men can also be taught. So are these natural things in women, or do we teach women these things? He's not really clear on that. Now typically, and I'm painting in broad brushstrokes here, typically women tend to express their emotions more than men. Now that's not to say that men don't have emotions or have less emotions, but out of necessity men tend to put their emotions aside to get the job done.
Men are expected to never be dependent. Never be dependent. And guess what? You can't emote and not be dependent. The two are linked. They're linked up.
In many cases, it's a necessity for the world to function that men do this. But if you look at the incredibly high male suicide rate, you see that there is a cost to that. This is the expectation put on males and masculinity. This is what feminists actually call male privilege. Now, should we live in a society where men can express their emotions more freely? Yeah, we should. But it's both men and women who criticize men who do that. And instead of feminists telling men that they should express their emotions more, what they mean is express their emotions in a pre-approved feminist manner which mirrors the way females express their emotions, which typically does not fit the mould of how men do it. Instead of telling men to do that, why don't women start helping carrying the load? You know, doing those jobs and activities which require men to shut down their emotions and get the job done. Maybe we should get more women into the military. Maybe we should get women doing more shitty jobs. You know, the thankless ones, the dirty ones, the ones where you have to stay away from home, you know, out in an oil rig somewhere, the ones that risk your life every day when you do it. Maybe women should work longer hours like men do, away from their families. Maybe if they start carrying their end of the burden, then men would have more freedom to express their emotions in a pre-approved feminist fashion. You know, just a thought, right?
In defense of masculinities, because there are several, not just one masculinities, and men who embody any form of masculinities, our behavior is the result of our socialization.
So masculinity and our behaviour is the result of our socialisation. So I'm guessing he belongs to the feminist school of gender is a social construct. Now that's interesting, because how do you explain trans people? If there is no biological component to gender, if it's just a social construct, then how do you explain trans people? In his mind, trans people must not be real, right? It just must be something in their imagination. Well, now, my personal opinion is that gender is a very complex mix of biology and socialization, and it probably changes from person to person. Some people it's going to be more biological, some it's going to be more social construct. Anyway, let's continue.
This does not mean that we are not at fault. We are.
Oh, of course we are, yeah. Yep, it's all the men. Yep. Men's fault all the way, no doubt. Next.
We continue to use our manhood to benefit ourselves, often stepping on women to get there.
Yeah, what about benefiting society? What about that, right? What about doing all the shitty jobs that women typically don't want to do? Now, it is true there are some women who do the shitty jobs. I'm not denying that, but most do not. Most people working on oil rigs are men. Most people in the military are men. Most people picking up your garbage are men. Most sewer workers are men. Most deep-sea fishermen are men. Now, these men aren't stepping on women to get there. They're doing it because they have to fucking pay their bills and be providers. They have to fulfill their role, right? They have to have worth in society, and the only way they get worth is by doing. Next.
This does, however, mean that we are taught, and not born, to act the way we do.
Okay, so men aren't born evil, they're just taught to be evil by society or the patriarchy or whatever, and apparently it's most men or all men or something, right? I wonder if he's going to exclude himself at some point. You know, the one good man syndrome. But it's interesting that he would say this because mothers tend to play a bigger role in a child's life than fathers, and most teachers these days happen to be female. So I think there's a lot of influence from females in society on growing young boys. Yet somehow they turn out to be trash and horrid misogynists, according to this fine mangina. Strange how that works. But anyway, let's continue.
Everything I'm typing today was most likely influenced by the teachings of a woman in my life.
Yeah, and I wonder if these women taught you to hate your masculinity, as you obviously do. I wonder if they were feminists. Next.
We feel entitled to land, promotions, women's bodies, and more because we are taught from a young age that the world is ours.
No, we're not. We don't feel we're entitled to land promotions. Men earn promotions. Once again, typically, on average, men work longer hours. They're more likely to work weekends or overtime or on public holidays. They're less likely to take time off work to look after their kids or be a stay-at-home dad. And they're more likely to have their self-image invested in being a good provider. All these things don't mean that men are entitled to land promotions. It means they fucking earn promotions when they put in the work to get those promotions. Now, women can do the same, and some women do. It's just typically men do it more. And that's not necessarily a good thing. I think the fact that a lot of women have a much better mix of family and work is a good thing. Maybe if more men did that, the suicide rate would be lower. But, you know, this idiot sees that as male privilege somehow. And men feel entitled to women's bodies? Well, I guess some men do, just as some women feel entitled to men's bodies. And, hey, guess what? Some women feel entitled to other women's bodies. That's why there is such a high percentage of lesbian rape, which people like you never talk about for some reason. Don't give a shit about those female victims, do you? Not when it's a female perpetrator. Then all of a sudden you're fucking silent. It seems you only care about female victims when you can demonize a fucking man and all men in general. Right? Funny that. Next.
Even men who identify or present as feminine still receive many of the benefits of manhood, even while simultaneously under the threat of violence for bending gender norms. Patriarchy means that men have male privilege.
So let's have a look at some of the male privileges that men typically have. They die earlier. Men die earlier than women. They typically work longer hours. They're more likely to die at work. The number of male deaths at work compared to female is staggering. I guess that doesn't have anything to do with the wage gap, though, does it? Right? More likely to be victims of violence. And, of course, less likely to be believed if the perpetrator is a woman. In fact, you're more likely to be arrested in those circumstances. Once again, male privilege. More likely to have your genitals mutilated at birth. More likely to commit suicide. More likely to be homeless, yet have less services, even though males are the majority of the homeless. Gotta love that male privilege, right? less likely to be believed if you're a male victim of sexual abuse, even if you're a teenager. Oh, but only if the perpetrator is a woman, right? Less likely to get custody of your kids and be part of their life. It's a pretty big male privilege right there. Oh, and of course, you're more likely to get a longer sentence for exactly the same crimes committed by a woman. That's just a couple of the male privileges that I can think of off the top of my head that this author seems to have forgotten. Next.
Male privilege allows us to dictate laws that restrict access to reproductive health and make for decision for women without their input.
Okay, so there are no female politicians who have influence in this, and there are no female voters. I'm guessing he's talking about abortion laws in the US. It's usually what they're talking about when they bring up this point. So there are no females that are against abortion, not even feminists, right? Like this group. Apparently they're all men in this group. And apparently no women vote for male politicians who restrict access to reproductive health. Right, sure. And, yeah, who gives a fuck about male reproductive health, right? You know, if a woman gets pregnant and she doesn't want the child, even if she doesn't have an abortion, she still has the option of the baby Moses laws. She can just go to her local fire station and leave the child there because she doesn't want to be a parent. And, you know, society doesn't want to burden her with parenthood. She has choice. Whereas a man who gets tricked into becoming a father, you know, she pokes holes in the condom, or she says she's on the pill, or whatever.
So even though I was with a husband who was a lot younger, wasn't ready to be a dad, I thought, right, well, he may be a baby himself. This is my last chance.
He said he didn't trust you.
Yeah, it's your last chance.
So he said, and then he insisted on condoms because he said, I think in the back of his mind, looking at what you said, he reckoned that you were going to trick him.
Yeah, so I'm not saying it's a good idea at all. It's really lucky that it didn't work with me. But I'm saying that women will get desperate, and the older you get, the more desperate you get, the more unlikely the man might be to be ready. He may not be ready. He may be ready in 2 years' time.
If you had fallen pregnant, would you have told him the truth? Would you have said, oh, well, that was an accident. How did that happen?
No, I don't think I would. And I would have just said I didn't do it deliberately. Oh, dear. You know, what should we do about it?
So you'd have lied. You'd have lied.
Well, lots of women I spoke to for this feature, they said, well, of course I didn't tell him. Of course
thieves and liars.
You think
women think they know better than men.
See, this worries me slightly, and Liz, I think you'll agree with me slightly here. I mean, this is not very girl power, this, is it? I mean, this is sort of giving us a very bad name. And
he's got no choice. He has to take care of that child, at least financially, until it's an adult. Not to mention the criticism every time a male reproductive pill comes up, because apparently feminists are afraid that if a man gets on the pill that he might lie about it and trick a woman into becoming pregnant. Apparently it only counts when it goes that way. Next.
And the very first thing is, a man's pain is taboo. A man's pain is taboo. You've heard speakers all day today talk about that in certain ways, but a man's pain is taboo. No one wants to touch it. No one wants to hear it. And men are not dumb. They know that. So what are they going to do? Go emote in public? No. They know their pain is taboo. Now, let's do an exercise. I want you to imagine that you're walking into your favorite restaurant. You're walking in your favorite restaurant, you're walking in to get seated, you're thinking, and you look over in the corner, at the corner table, there's a woman. She's crying. What's the first thing you think about with her? Anybody? What's wrong? Poor dear, she's upset, right? I've asked this question to thousands of therapists in the workshops I give. I'm telling you, they all say the same thing. Poor dear, she must have just broken up with someone. She needs support. How can I help, right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Erase that image. Go back, you're walking into the same restaurant, you're walking by and you notice over in that corner table there's a guy and he's crying. What's your first reaction? Get away. Wimp. What else? Drunk. Exactly. This is what I hear over and over again. People immediately come up with that. I came up with that, and I was working with them. You know, this is not something that is just a couple of people. This is almost all of us have this bias that's built in that says, man's pain, get away. There's something wrong with that guy. He's probably drunk. You know? So we're all built to not want to get close to men's pain. Men know this. They know it. They know no one wants to hear this crap. In fact, the guys I'd sit with, they'd look at me and they'd say, do you really want to hear this? They couldn't believe that someone would want to listen to their pain. It's sad. So the first thing that tipped me off was that men's pain is invisible because a man's pain is taboo. Now there's another one. The provide and protect rule. Oh boy. So you provide and protect people, and guess what? Who's providing and protecting for you? Nobody. Nobody's providing and protecting. Think about, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you and your wife wake up, there's a big noise down in the basement. Boom, something goes. Who's going down to check it out?
Not me.
That's a woman said that. Who's going down to check it out? Guess what? In today's world, women may very well say, I'll go down and check that out. And if she did that, she'd be a hero, right? But women's roles are very flexible these days. She'd not only be a hero, but if she said, honey, I really don't want to do that. Can you go? It'd be fine. Nobody get upset, right? There's no problem. Now, how about the guy? If he goes down and checks it out, he's doing his job. Right? That's what he's supposed to do. He is the guy. But if he says, no, honey, I don't want to go, he's a jackass. Can you see the double standard that's going on? Yes. Men are expected to never be dependent. Never be dependent. And guess what? You can't emote and not be dependent. The two are linked. They're linked up. So men strive to not be dependent for good reasons, because the culture whips them into that. There's a guy named Peter Merritt. He wrote this beautiful piece on homelessness and men. But one of the things in the piece stuck with me. And he talked about men and dependency. Listen to what he says. To put it simply, men are neither supposed nor allowed to be dependent. Men are not supposed to be or allowed to be dependent. They're expected to take care of others and themselves. And when they cannot or will not do it, then the assumption at the heart of the culture is that they're somehow less than men and therefore unworthy of help. Get it? An irony asserts itself. By being in need of help, men forfeit the right to it. Does that make sense? A guy comes out and he says, I don't need that help. I'm fine. I'm a man, right? Hey, no problem. He doesn't get the help. But if a guy comes out and he says, you know, I really need some help today, people automatically have a view of him. There's something wrong with that guy, right? He doesn't deserve this help. It's a very powerful double standard that goes on for men that keeps them, again, from wanting to emote in public, wanting to bring it out so people can see it. Very different. Now, the third reason is the dominance hierarchy. You guys know about the bighorn sheep, right? Bighorn sheep. The males, once a year, get together and they get 20 yards apart and then boogity, 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 boom! Boogity, 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 boom! Right? Have you seen that? You know, the YouTubes of that. What are they doing? What are they doing? They're setting up the hierarchy. They're setting it up so who's first, second, third, fourth, and they're going to be that dominant male at the top. And the dominant male at the top is what? He gets the best reproductive success. All right? This is what men strive for. And now we know, or we're thinking we know, that there is in fact a dominance hierarchy in human males. There's a dominance hierarchy in human males where we strive for status. Men strive for status. This is a little bit tricky because it's not like, it's not simple. Because if there's men who are peace lovers, they may strive to be the best peace lover. A guy on the football field, he's going to strive to make the NFL. Academe is going to strive for having as many journal articles in prestigious journals as he can. There's this striving that's inherent in men that we do in order to create status and therefore increase our reproductive success. Does that make sense? What happens if someone is striving for status and they emote in public? Your status drops like a rock. So you sure as heck do not want to go out in public and emote, because that ruins all the status you've been working to build up. Now, they're also thinking that women do not have the same kind of hierarchical requirements that men have, but they do have one hierarchy where they live. Do you know what it is? How do women compete with each other? There's one issue: attractiveness. Attractiveness. Look at the cosmetics industry, the billions of dollars that goes into that. Women will compete with each other based on who is more attractive than whom, and they strive to go to the top, right? Have you ever seen a woman say, I'm not leaving home right now because I don't have my makeup on, right? Have you seen that? What's she doing? She is saying, in my hierarchy, I'm not going to look lower until I can prop myself up and look better. She's doing the same thing that the men get crap for. You know, the men get crap for this not emoting so much. But they're just doing the same thing. They're trying to not let themselves be exposed in public in the very same way that the woman is trying to look as good as she can. So we need to love them both. Love men and women. We're all in a hierarchy one way or the other.